Hey, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. We have another edition of Laundry Room Mechanics here for you. Today we are working on a 2001 CR125 engine. We need to replace the water pump on it. Hopefully this video helps you out. If it does, please just leave a like. Let's get into it.
I have the engine out of the frame, so I've already drained the transmission and coolant oil. I've disconnected the hoses from the water pump. I have removed the brake pedal, and the last thing for me to do right now, before taking off the right crankcase cover and the water pump cover, is to remove the kickstarter pedal. And that simply is a 12mm bolt sitting right there. Take that out, and then your kickstarter pedal will wiggle off. The next thing we want to do is to remove the water pump cover. And to remove the water pump cover, you have 4 bolts to take out. Number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. These water pump bolts are place specific, so this is the top left bolt, top right bolt, which should be the longest, bottom left bolt, and bottom right bolt. Next up is to remove the right crankcase cover bolts. So we have 1 bolt, 2nd bolt, 3rd bolt, 4th bolt, 5th bolt, 6th bolt, 7th bolt, and 8th bolt up here underneath the radiator line. So 8 bolts to get this right crankcase cover off. Alright, starting from this top left bolt with the clip for the brake line or whichever it is, I'm going counterclockwise. So here's a lineup of all my bolts to help out anybody in case. The longest bolt being in this 2nd position right here from the top, working counterclockwise. Next thing we have to do is to remove the power valve cover, gasket, and then the power valve shaft that runs from the right crankcase up. So you have 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this screw right here. Play the screw. Gasket thing too. And you have to take out that retaining clip there and then pull this shaft back off. Just like that. And then put that clip right back in its place. Once you have everything off, including this power valve cover, this right crankcase is prepared to come off. As you can see, I've already split it off. When you take your right crankcase cover off, don't lose this washer. It might stick to the cover due to the oil. It's the Kickstarter Spindle washer. It sits right here, or goes around here, and it might sit right there. 1 dowel on the left side there, 1 dowel on the right side there. Make sure you don't lose this stopper pin right here. It goes underneath the piece that actuates. Now I'm going to remove the water pump cover. I could have done this earlier, I just didn't. So you take this cover off, and you need to watch out for insulation. There'll be a gasket on the backside of the cover. There'll be this metal plate, and then another gasket behind that. Be careful with these 2 pins right here, number 1 and number 2, that I believe these can come out, so don't lose those during the teardown. The propeller nut right there is a 10mm, and the propeller shaft flat spot is a 8mm. This whole propeller here will rotate off. Don't lose that copper washer. And then from the inside, backside, you can pull this gear out. Alright, these are the seals from inside the water pump in there. There's a bearing in there. This is the seal that's going to be on the outside. This is the seal that's going to be on the inside. Both of these are actually on this side of the bearing. This larger one is here, and its open face is going to be pointing out to the outside of the bike. And the smaller one, the inner face, open face, is going to be pointing to the inside of the motor, to the inside of the bike when you install it. So that they're 2 butts. These 2 flat sides are up against each other, so they're butting each other right before this bearing. For this bearing here that was in the inside, I just took a 16mm socket, placed it down in, and then hammered it down through. Now that everything's out and completely clean, I'm going to insert my new bearing and new seals, new gaskets, and put everything back together. I think this smaller bearing goes right here. I'm not going to replace that at this time because I don't know how people get that out. So I'm just going to leave it. So I installed the bearing here on the inside. I used a 17mm socket, making sure that the socket set on the outside race and not the inner so that no warping occurred. And I also installed the inner seal here, the smaller seal, making sure that the open face is to the inside and its butt end here is to the outside. Alright, I've got the last seal in, the large seal. The open face is to the outside of the bike with its butt end to the inside. I'm gonna push the propeller through, or the shaft, and then put the propeller nut on it, and remembering the copper washer. Go ahead and put gasket number 1 on. I put this adhesive side down towards the engine. Take your metal plate, put that down, place that on top of the metal plate. You're all set to put your water pump back on. Make sure those pins are still there. For putting the engine back together, it's not too difficult. Just make sure that you clean these mating surfaces between the crankcase and your new gaskets. I recommend using a new gasket, especially on this right crankcase cover, just so you don't lose oil. Make sure your right crankcase cover goes on smoothly when you put it back on. You don't want to be fighting against it. Make sure this Kickstarter spindle gear and spring are where they started at. Those can be annoying to mess around with. Be sure when you put your right crankcase cover on to reassemble your power valve up in here. Remember your retainer clip and your stopper pin.
Yeah. Shut it